Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for the Monday Q&As. So let's knock this out. Although very quickly a few people had said, had I brought Bagpuss with me, that he would have backed me up the other day in that bar situation. And to let everyone know, yes, Bagpuss did come to Texas with me. And I asked him why he didn't have my back, and he said he was too busy getting balls deep in some sugar walls. Alright, so first question. On what program can you gain more gains over time, your novice program or a normal bodybuilding program? Well, the novice program actually kind of is a beginning bodybuilder or hypertrophy type program with strength as a secondary goal. It is a size program. So I'm not really sure why you would ask that. However, considering that bodybuilding programs vary dramatically, let's go with what people are considering right now a traditional bodybuilding program that 20 years ago was not a traditional bodybuilding program. Nobody trained like that. But let's go with what people are calling traditional bodybuilding programs now, these body part splits. These splits are intended for people to capitalize on the protein synthesis uptime and the capacity to grow from large amounts of volume in a single bout through single factor recovery for people who are using massive amounts of anabolic drugs. So since they're kind of geared towards that, obviously if you're using massive amounts of anabolic drugs like testosterone, steroids, growth hormone, insulin, all of that stacked together, and you're using a program that capitalizes on that, you're going to obviously be able to make the most gains consistently over time doing that. So there's your answer. The program is intended to make the most gains because it's intended for, I don't mean that program, those types of programs are intended for people who are using the largest doses of drugs to try to capitalize on certain components of that. So obviously the people who capitalize on the components of using the largest amount of drugs and who are on the largest amount of drugs are going to gain the most muscle. Now, if you're talking purely for people who aren't on drugs, my novice program is going to put more size on you over time if you follow it consistently. But like with any other program, hard work and consistency will actually generally put more size on you than a well-written program because people might half-ass a well-written program or get bored on it. So if they do that, they're not going to gain the benefits from it. They'll do better on something else. All right, next question. In the recent Q&A, you said GHRs, that's glute ham raises, are essential for field athletes. What do you recommend doing if you're not strong enough, too heavy to perform even one rep? Is there an alternative? Or how would you get someone to where they can perform a GHR things? If you're not strong enough to perform one, no, there's not really a lot of exercises that are going to give you the full benefits of that. What I would recommend, 3 things until you're strong enough to do one, and it shouldn't take you long. One thing, you probably need to lose a little body fat, because even if you're a really big, bulky athlete, for a field athlete, you're going to be fairly strong anyway, so you should still be strong enough to do that. And if you aren't, I'm going to recommend a combination of maybe doing Romanian deadlifts, laying leg curls, because again, you need to get strong at the bottom position in the joint angle specificity, and so those standing leg curls aren't going to do that for you. You need the laying one so that it gives you a very similar joint angle specificity to the glute ham raise, and just do negatives on the glute ham raise, controlled negatives. You do those 3 things for a little while and you will get strong enough in your hamstrings to be able to do them, and then you'll be able to do them and you'll be where you need to be. But yeah, I do consider them to be an essential lift for injury prevention and strength balance for any sort of field athlete, particularly in any sort of contact sport. All right, next question. Hey Jason, I want a lower back of steel, a lower back of the gods. I'm already doing deadlifts, of course, but what other exercises can you recommend throwing in there for someone trying to build a really strong lower back? Thanks. Couple things I would recommend. Now, first of all, if you want a stronger lower back from doing these, doing more core work will help. But squats and deadlifts will help you already. Deadlifts will be tremendous in and of themselves. If you feel you need a little more, consider weighted hyperextensions or maybe deficit stiff leg deadlifts or even normal stiff leg deadlifts, where I have a tutorial in the how-to playlist on those if you want to see what I'm talking about. I show you how to perform those correctly. So correctly done stiff leg deadlifts with a rounded back can do that, or weighted hyperextensions. But the thing is, if you're already deadlifting heavy with any sort of frequency, you need to be careful how often you do that, because the lower back can take longer than a lot of other muscles to recover, and you might predispose yourself to injury. Don't overdo it. You need to be progressive with this, and you need to pay attention to recovery in your lower back. All right, next question. Are ripped abs just an industry lie and only achievable with drugs? 50s bodybuilders never had ripped abs, and I'm at 9% and still don't have them. Only an outline, not the shrink wrap look. How does one find a good bodybuilding workout plan? A couple different answers because you asked multiple questions. Is the shrink wrapped look from drugs? Yes, absolutely. Don't let anybody bullshit you and tell you you're going to get that shrink wrapped look without drugs. They're so full of shit for the most part. Maybe a tiny number of people can genetically do it in a perfect diet, but they're very few and far between. There's maybe a couple of guys out there who are successfully doing so, who have amazing genetics with fantastic nutrition coaching, but for the majority of people, you're never going to get that shrink wrap look without drugs. And why would you even want that? That shrink wrap look isn't even sustainable for the people who have the genetics to do it. They can't maintain that look for 2 weeks straight, and it's hard on your body, so don't worry about the shrink wrap look. That's generally the product of drugs. Now, as far as ripped abs at 9%, I can tell you this: you're not 9% body fat. You need to go back. I put charts up for a reason, and you need to look at the results of people's DEXA scans and things. If you're 9% body fat, you're going to have ripped abs. I don't care what your genetics are, unless you genetically do not have abs. There are some people who do not have that connective tissue that separates their abs, in which case that's a genetic trait, but they're still going to have veins all over that one big ab they have. So they're going to be really lean. So if you don't have that, you're not 9% body fat. You're probably 13 or 15% body fat, and you've misestimated yourself at 9%, or someone did some sloppy caliper work and give you that number. That's not where you are, brother. 9% is really lean. You should be shredded. All right, next question. Thoughts on pause deadlifts and double pause deadlifts. All right, this goes back to a point I make oftentimes of how there is a margin of error out there in sports. When you have people who have combined amazing genetics with hefty amounts of drugs and an insane work ethic, they can oftentimes get a few things wrong in their training and still be amazing in spite of it, and still be champions, and still be better than the rest of us, because those three things combined together give you a lot of wiggle room, as long as you're busting your ass. Now, that being said, yes, I know there are some champions who do these pause deadlifts. I think they're champions in spite of doing the pause deadlifts, not because of them. If anything, with pause deadlifts, you are training yourself to decelerate during a deadlift. That's not something you want to do. You should be trying to focus on being explosive and as fast as possible on the lift, which means that pause work, you're training yourself into a motor pattern that is not necessarily desirable. If you want to work on pulling through a weak point and you already are explosive and strong enough and that's not helping anymore, that's where things like block pulls become effective. Now, I wouldn't pause, I would do block pulls so that you don't have to deal with the deceleration. You have to deal with accelerating directly from your weak point without a deceleration before it, because you could be reinforcing that negative. And maybe those amazing champions who pull 800 pounds that way at a body weight they shouldn't be able to do it at, who are doing the pause deadlifts, might be pulling 810 or 820 if they weren't doing that shit and they were doing the other methods, because it doesn't make a lot of sense for people to do it, and I don't agree with it. And again, it's not saying that these champions are doing everything wrong, because clearly they're doing a lot right, but it goes to show you that a combination of amazing genetics, amazing work ethic with some drugs can go a really long way and give you a margin of error. All right, next question. What is the difference in calories burned between running a given distance and walking the same distance? I've come across various information. Some suggest that through running you burn even twice as many. Others say the difference is next to non-existent. All the data I've seen, this can vary a little bit, has shown that generally, particularly once you start running multiple miles, that running tends to give you, when you combine together the total calories burned during the run and then the small epoch effect afterwards, that post-workout burn, it's approximately, and this can vary a bit depending on the study, but it's in the ballpark of 20% more. So if you run 5 miles versus walking 5 miles, if you burned 400 calories walking the 5 miles, you're probably going to burn around 500 calories running it, and you're going to get it done a lot faster. All right, next question. What kind of mobility work, prehab, stretching would you recommend for your rotator cuffs aside from face pulls? There's a few things you can do. I had some demonstration videos in some of my training clips way back in the UK when I was training in the dungeon still, of doing some band work, of doing like band around the worlds and doing band pull aparts to the chest. So you can do those in addition to face pulls, particularly face pulls with bands. Those three things are really going to do a lot for your prehab and strengthening up your rotator cuffs and your rear delts in general also, which is a good combination to have. If you want a more stable shoulder joint, strengthening the rotator cuffs and your rear delts is going to help you a lot. And those three things will generally get that done for you. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.